This morning, Alex Abbott, founder of Sapiro, creator of the Conversation Operating System, and I am joined by my fellow co-hosts, Andy.
Oh, you want me to? Oh, sorry. Andy Huff, founder of the Institute of Sales Professionals, researcher in sales and lecturing in sales leadership and performance at Cranfield University. Also, teaching, lecturing sounds very much finger pointing, doesn't it? So it's just not how people should learn.
Not enabling.
A blackboard and a pointer, you mean?
I have one of those hats with a tassel on it as well.
Oh, nice.
Goodbye, Mr. Chips.
Do you have a cardie with patches on the elbow?
I have a jacket, and it's now a jumper I have with a zip. It's moved on from a cardigan. There's no buttons anymore because it's not considered health and safety. But yeah, I do. I'll go and get it in a minute.
Corduroy.
To
Yes.
be actually fair to you, somebody my size and corduroy, you have to be very careful because that could start a fire.
Friction.
Anyway, Adam, over to you.
Yeah, Adam.
Hi, everybody. I'm Adam Gray. I'm co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I'm loving these comments. But do you want to put Jensen's comment up?
Yeah.
I think here is a very astute young man. A handsome panel today.
Does he owe you rent, Alex, or something?
No, he doesn't. He's got his own house.
Has he?
Yeah, thankfully he moved out a while ago.
He must want something else then.
So good morning, Jensen, and good morning, Andrew, as well.
Yeah, cool. So our guest today is someone we've had on before. You may recognize him. We enjoyed his banter so much that we've invited him back on. This time we're talking about whether or not your organization is leveraging sales resources to full effect. So Thies, do you want to introduce yourself?
Well, hi guys. My name is Thies Hazenbroek. I'm VP of International Sales with Actito. I have my own company, a bunch of other stuff I do on the side. I'm co-founder of a company in the Netherlands, which is called Live Signal. Well, a bunch of stuff, like I said. So never a dull moment, and always happy to help. Thanks for having me on again. So apparently I did not as bad as I did, or I thought I did.
Yeah, well, it was real the last time, right? You were stuck in traffic in the car,
Yes,
dialing in on your mobile phone.
It was a hassle. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm glad it's inconvenienced you. Anyway, welcome, Thies. So look, B2B sales in 2024 is set to get harder, with pipeline quality dropping and close rates falling by as much as 50% in the last 2 years. So the focus must be on whether current resources are being used effectively and ensuring that however they are deployed, they're not losing your team or your business money. Now, I've got a question for you that I think might be a little, flying in the face of this, let's say the sun being too hot. But can salespeople afford to make mistakes in 2024, given the pressure that is on businesses to perform?
Oh, wow. Is that a question to the whole group, or just merely to me?
It's the whole group. I know Andy's going to have some thoughts on this.
Yeah,
I know we just want us to pitch up once and talk about a happy subject. It's like, I just talked about my speeding fine this morning, and it's like salespeople are all dead and doomed. 2024, the plague. Thies, come on, bring us up, mate. Say
do your stuff online. Don't get speeding tickets. That would be my recommendation, especially for you, Andy. But I think it's a really interesting question, Alex, and I haven't even thought about it the way you've put it to wording like this. From a human perspective, of course, right? Because if we're not able to make mistakes, how the hell are we supposed to learn? On the other hand, because of the pressure of the business, sales cycles indeed have increased in time. If we look at the Gartner waves last year, they already predicted that this would happen in 2023. Hence, their estimate was that M&A for most of the organizations would be the main source of growth, which is and has been shown to be true. So for 2024, expecting that nothing else is going to change really rapidly on that end. I think it's a really interesting question you put on the place, whether sales is allowed to make maybe not as many mistakes as before. So I think the processes that are in place and the way you manage people must be tightened up. And you may want to, where you would say people are on a leash, you would make the leash maybe a little bit more tight. However, in my personal experience is the tighter you make them, the less productive or, the less you may expect. So there's a tight balance there, I think.
Yeah, because we've talked before that it's important to ensure that leadership is creating psychological safety for salespeople, and create an environment where salespeople should feel comfortable making mistakes, because when you make mistakes, then you learn. But I feel like there's a dichotomy between businesses so focused on every single dollar that psychological safety is very difficult to create.
But
Agreed.
haven't we got two things going on here? So the first of them is that modern culture vilifies people for making mistakes. So you are not allowed to learn by getting things wrong anymore. You're taught how to do something, and it's not in sales, that's in every possible area. So there is no apprenticeship anymore. You have to hit the ground running. So I think that's the first thing. Culture is such that mistakes are the worst thing that you can possibly do. The second thing is that many organizations have so little pipeline. They have so little opportunity within the organization that squandering that by making a mistake, I'm sorry, TS, your presentation wasn't good enough. I'm sorry, Alex, you didn't administer this and get enough touch points within the organization. Whatever the failure point is, because there isn't that dead meat, unfortunately, that can have a catastrophic effect on businesses.
The impact is tremendous. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was talking to a large organization, or a team within a large organization, and their entire Q3 was resting on one deal, which in the end didn't happen.
Yeah.
So they had nothing. And I don't know whether that it didn't happen because somebody made a mistake or the client just changed their mind about buying. But either way, they went from making their number to not making their number with a single email. And I think that the pressures people are under at the moment mean that it's not okay to get things wrong.
Agreed.
Yeah. We're getting some great comments, by the way. Sorry, Tias, just to jump.
Go on.
We're getting some great comments, and
mostly from your family. So that's
yeah, good one.
Jack basically said, "Can you bring some milk home?"
Well, Chris is one of the family anyway, so it's
yeah. But no, I think in all seriousness, we want to talk about real issues and address them. So for anyone in the audience listening, is what we're talking about making any sense, or is it different within your organization?
Here's an idea though, and this is back to Matt Dixon's, and I'd really like TS's view on this. Matt Dixon's jolt, and obviously the fear of messing up, isn't it? Is now replaced the fear of missing out, etc. But back to this psychological thing, all companies that I know have procurement on one side and organization, and they have a sales force, yeah. And actually, if you just looked at one company, so let's pick Oracle as an example. Most of the procurement people are fearing messing up. Yeah, so they're not making decisions. 52% of deals end up in no deal or stick with the status quo, all of those things. And the sales force on the other side are dealing with other people's procurement, and what we've got is this psychological unsafe area in most companies that every single employee, to your point, Tias, is afraid of making a mistake. And if you just looked at it from one organization, no wonder it's not working, because Oracle are out there trying to sell to a whole bunch of people and they're afraid of messing up. But Oracle's own procurement department are afraid of messing up. So it's got to be now that, to TS's point, this wonderful thing of saying you don't know or making a mistakes out the window, and everyone's meant to be perfect and completely and utterly knowledgeable on everything.
Yeah.
And that feeds stress and everything else. So
there you go again. It's that circle.
Yeah.
But we need to be really careful, don't we? Because I can't help feeling that creating a safe space where it's okay for people to make mistakes is very much on the cusp of saying to people, we want you to make mistakes. And I think that we need to be really careful that what we don't say is to people, it's okay, just go out there and do your thing and everything will be all right. Because actually for many organizations, it won't be all right. You know, they've had a bad Q3 following a bad Q2, following a bad Q1. They're looking forward to a bad Q4. They've just laid a bunch of people off because they haven't got any cash in the business. And what's important is that the stuff that they have got going through goes to completion and they make some money on it.
Well, the other thing I think is there's a big difference between making an honest mistake and being down, like, oh, I didn't manage my time effectively and I haven't submitted the RFP on time. That's incompetence, unless there's a really, really, really good excuse, versus I gave it my best shot in the meeting and no matter what I did, I couldn't persuade my buyer to look at our solution, for example.
Yeah, or hit that tree like we discussed this morning.
Yeah, you know, mistakes are going to happen. To your point, though, Alex, I don't think anybody pitches up to work to be downright incompetent. You know,
No.
Okay, there's possibly a small proportion of people who are malicious, and therefore that comes across as incompetent or deliberately disruptive. But most people want to do a good job.
Agreed. And I think it's also a line management job, right? To create and harvest that security, like you mentioned. Because I've been managed by many people. One of the first managers I had was with a company called Senders, daughter of Post here in the Netherlands, and he always created an environment whereas I had the feeling I was operating completely independently. But when I was about to really fuck up, he would just be there in time to make sure that I wouldn't. And I think that is exactly, the area that we still need to create, even in these times.
Oh, I think so. You remember those times as well. They're always with you. I mean, I can remember going, when I used to sell financial services, to Manchester Airport to see the FD, and my boss came with me, and I sat there, and it was like, do you use asset finance? Oh yeah, we use asset finance. Oh, brilliant! Great. They use asset finance for trucks and stuff like that. Got to the questioning, I said, oh, who do you use? And he went, yeah, Barclays, large finance. And it's like, great. So another part of my company was actually already doing everything. And my boss is looking out the window at the airplanes at this point, going, just wait till I get him back to the car. And he got me into the car, and he just turned to me and he went, so what did you learn from that then? It was like, yeah, due diligence and homework might have been a good idea. And he went,
I think so.
Never forgot it. To your point, Tis, never forgotten that lesson. Do your prep and understand where you're going to first.
Yeah.
But that was a different time, wasn't it? Nowadays, you wouldn't be given your boss wouldn't point at you and laugh and go, ha, ha, ha. Well, that's taught you something you need to remember. Your boss would say, right, why didn't you do your due diligence? I'm going to put you on a PIP. I'm going to give you a written warning for this. This isn't good enough. And I think that's not a reflection on bosses now. That's a reflection on the way the world operates.
In some cases, but I think that's also depending on what level of sales are we talking about, right? So that may very well differ depending on. There's all sorts of hiring strategies. One of the topics we touched on the last time. If you're senior sales, if you're seasoned sales, then obviously you can't. And then I would fully agree to put someone directly on a PIP or maybe even the way out, or what the hell happened, right? But if it's a junior or medium, new in the industry, and new to the complexity, new to various things. Even though the times are stressful and your pipe is indeed, small, and resonate that only one opportunity that can make or break your quarter, then still in an environment like that, if you've hired people with this certain profile, you can't expect them to act like seniors. So you have to tighten the relationship, but still maintain that feeling of, emotional, mental, safe environment where they can thrive and learn. And like we said in the beginning, and that's never going to change. If we're not able and allowed to make mistakes, we'll never learn. So it's merely the fact: how soon can you anticipate, act on any mistakes, and make sure that mistake doesn't harm the deal process as such. So not creating and crafting an environment purely instrumental, orchestrated in such a way that it's that it's a process that is not allowed to harvest any mistakes. I think that is doomed to fail in the long run anyway, because as long as it's a human process, even for AI, if I may. Many people think, just sidetracking, if I put AI in, then and it's good. No, AI does this. It goes down first because it first needs to learn, and once it learns, then and that is similar to human.
There's been some great comments. Thank you, Robert and Andrew, Scott. I just wanted to bring up this comment from Christopher. We should not build a sales plan that includes larger deals. By building plans focused on what the insight tells us is our run-of-the-mill revenue streams, we can work with our sellers to correctly size pipelines. This approach means we are creating, where are we?
A safe zone for mistakes to happen.
Yeah. There we go. So what do you think to that?
Well, this is down to your manager, isn't it? So, I have been unfortunate enough to work with some people that have been absolutely focused on every single deal and, fitting into the process. And I've also been fortunate enough to work for people that have said, go and do your thing. I'll fly air cover for you, and allowed me to be my best self. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone is going to buy from me, but what it does mean is that I'm allowed to really engage with the buyer in a way that I'm comfortable doing. And I think that's less down to corporate culture and more down to the bravery of the manager, isn't it? And saying, I'm going to protect you and everybody like you in my team from the stuff that rains down from above.
Yeah.
But isn't the problem? Yeah, sorry, Andy, go on.
I was lucky enough to see a guy called Simon Cooper, who's writes for the FT, but he's basically a football journalist, and he did a presentation for half an hour about actually what can football managers kind of do in terms of the sales context, and to the point there, it was football managers never ever publicly criticize, or great football managers never criticize the talent publicly. You go and have a conversation with them in the dressing room afterwards and say that wasn't potentially your best, but fundamentally never criticize them in public. And that is way too much now prevalent in terms of the blame culture in most organisations, isn't it? It wasn't my fault, it's my team.
Yeah, I guess to Christopher's point, it's up to the manager to ensure that the player has been played in the right game, for example, has been brought on as a sub perhaps to build confidence rather than expect them to score goals in their first game.
I think what's fascinating around what he was saying is actually a great football manager doesn't have to motivate talent. Talent should motivate itself. What you're there to do, and this comes back to what Tiers was saying, is you create the environment and create the culture for exceptional performance. You create that and say, I want everybody to do really, really well here, and I want everyone to be their best, etc., and learn, and I'll support that. But it's not my job to motivate you every morning.
Yeah. So what would be our message to the managers out there? Because I think everybody of us can relate to the fact that if we have, as remember yourself being, one of the sales reps back in the day, and the great experience that you just shared, Andy, and Adam for that matter as well. If there is a manager allowing you to take the space and create that relationship and intimacy the way you want to with your end customer, you can imagine, especially in times like these, how would senior management react on that towards the, say, middle management layer, and what would be our advice to the middle management layer in order to keep on facilitating that space, whereas their teams can excel, if that makes sense.
Isn't one of the challenges that organizations often create processes and procedures that legislate for the lowest common denominator? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to recruit some people, and then I'm going to pay them really well, but I'm going to treat them as if they're idiots. Mm-hmm. So here's what you need to do, and here's what you need to do. And I think that many organizations, particularly now, they drive people for particular metrics. And Alex knows this better than anyone because he's got 2 sons in the sales industry. And the challenge that we have is that what you're buying me for is to provide revenue into the organization, but what you're measuring me on is the activities which maybe don't work. So what I'm looking for you to do, TS, is do 100 calls a week. You say, I'm not doing 100 calls a week. I'm not going to do any calls a week. And I don't need to, because I've got a really strong network that's really engaged. So my pipeline means that I'm going to make 120% of my number. Yeah, but one of your KPIs is your calls. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I'm the only one that's outperforming in the team. So why do I need to do that stuff that clearly isn't working? Because that's one of your KPIs. And I think many organizations get stuck between these 2 things. It's like the old, you've got to clock in at 9, clock out at 6. I'm paying you for your time. Well, you can't pay me for my time and my performance. You can't pay me for my inputs and my outputs. You must decide which one you want. Do you want me to make lots of calls? Do you want me to send lots of emails? Or do you want me to sell lots of stuff? Because the 2 may not be the same thing.
To Robbie's point, Adam, the management need to emphasize the strength of the individual. They need to understand what the person brings to the table and help him, her in the process, as opposed to do what you're saying.
But why? I don't disagree with Robbie's point, but why do we have to emphasize the strength of the individual?
Because if let's say they are a rock star, let's say they've performed really well at another organization because of certain things they did as an individual, and they want the ability to spread their wings and show the organization how good they are, but they're not able to because they're put in a box.
So I would come at this in the Beautiful Minds scenario where he kind of looked at it in a pub and went incomplete. The issue is, and this comes back to what obviously TS has been talking about, is the most important sales resource is the individual, it's just the human being. Because the only thing that you haven't, the only thing a company has got, which the competition haven't, is that individual. Yeah. So if you look at all of you mentioned processes, TS and everybody, the reality about it is there isn't a piece of sales software, a sales process, a methodology that your competition can't have. They can even replicate your pricing in your product. The one thing they can't replicate in sales resource is the person. So unless we actually double down, so I'm expanding Romy's point, unless we double down and say the individual, the unit of analysis is helping that person be the very best version of themselves that they can be. They're talented. How do I create that? That's the thing which will drive success versus not. And we keep missing this by a country mile.
Isn't the issue one of scale within an organization? So, if you treat everybody the same, you can create a series of unified metrics for measuring people's success and scoring people within the organization. Mm-hmm. And, I'm thinking back to Oracle here. Here's an organization that's got 140,000 salespeople globally. You can't, in an organization that size, or can you? It's a question rather than a statement. You can't have every person doing it their way.
You
What you
can't
need-
in terms of systems, and I'm sure TS has got that.
Yeah.
You can't in terms of planning and process and numbers and information, but they can all be individual. Because if you want 140,000 sane people, well, there you go. There's the argument that AI is going to replace everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But so I get it. Somebody once said to me, a lovely lady called Charlotte at Amex once said, actually, if you don't have processes and you don't have these systems, it's basically like trying to paint a house while it's burning down. So, but there's an element of what do you want so you can easily understand the health of the business versus putting everybody into that box and saying, I don't want any innovation. I don't want any kind of consideration. I don't want you to build relationships based on humanity. Because sales is a science, but it's a social science. Yeah, I don't want you to do any of these things. I want you to just be a complete robot.
Yeah. So it's a combination of art still and science, right? I think we all agree on that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Hey, we have 1 minute left, if I'm correct. So, and too short, too little, because there was some other element that I wanted to throw in, and that has everything to do with being more creative, right? Times like these, not just from the sales, but from an organizational point of view, ask for innovative new ideas. Because yes, sales is going down, sales cycles are going up. If you're selling single point solution, hell, you can't do any upsell either. So crap. Yet we all know that we're part of this ecosystem of multiple things, right? And we have this valid relationship with an existing customer. Can't we capitalize on that in a different way? And isn't sales the first person to see this, to mark this, to indicate there's a new business model, there's new possibilities, there's new, and I think that is happening too little, and I'm still expecting that to take launch, especially into 24.
Yeah, great point, and you're helping us finish on a more uplifting note, TS. So thank you, and in the words, in the words of Andrew Slessor, can't say rock star nowadays, according to a certain TV advert. I would say we are all rock stars in our own right. Sod that TV advert and think about the one thing that you can all do differently today that will help you get one step closer to achieving your objectives. And so with that, this is Sales TV. Thank you to the audience for some great comments. Thank you, Tias, Adam, and Andy, for a great conversation. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you next time on Sales TV.